When we think of Hollywood's golden era, we picture classic cinema, glamorous stars, and unforgettable vintage films. But behind the scenes of those iconic movies, some actors lived lives tougher than any script could imagine. These weren't just legends of the silver screen, they were real-life warriors shaped by battles far from the spotlight. Today, we're diving into the untold stories of the toughest men in Hollywood, proving that in classic film, some heroes didn't need a director to be legendary. At number one is a man whose real-life heroics make any Hollywood film look tame, Audie Murphy. Known today for his roles in vintage movies, Murphy was first and foremost America's most decorated soldier of World War II. At just 19, he held off an entire German company single-handedly, earning the Medal of Honor. After the war, Hollywood came calling, turning this battlefield legend into a star of classic cinema. But unlike other actors of the golden era, Murphy didn't need stunt doubles or scripted bravery. He'd lived it all. Starring in over 40 films, including playing himself into Hell and Back, Murphy brought authenticity no other actor could match. Off-screen, he mastered marksmanship, judo, and carried the scars of real combat. In A Town Built on Illusion, Audie Murphy was the rare figure whose true story outshined any role. He wasn't just tough by Hollywood standards, he was the embodiment of courage, proving that sometimes the greatest legends in cinema are those written by history itself. In the heart of Hollywood's golden era, James Stewart was the face of classic cinema, charming, humble, and beloved for roles in timeless films like It's a Wonderful Life. But behind his gentle screen persona was a man forged by war. At the height of his fame, Stewart walked away from Hollywood movies to serve his country in World War II. He didn't just pose for publicity. He flew dangerous bombing missions over Europe, rising to the rank of Brigadier General. Stewart later served during Vietnam, making him one of the few stars of vintage Hollywood whose heroism extended far beyond the screen. While many actors played brave pilots in cinema, Stewart lived it with quiet dignity. In an industry built on storytelling, his real-life courage became a story few could match. James Stewart wasn't just a legend in classic film, he was a true American hero who proved that sometimes the nicest guy in Hollywood could also be the toughest. Charles Bronson was the embodiment of rugged toughness in classic Hollywood movies, but his hard edge wasn't just for cinema. Raised in crushing poverty, working in coal mines as a teenager, Bronson knew survival before he ever set foot on a film set. During World War II, he flew combat missions as a gunner, earning a Purple Heart. When he transitioned to Hollywood during its golden era, his weathered face and stoic presence made him a natural fit for gritty roles in vintage films like Death Wish. But off-screen, Bronson was as reserved as he was relentless, avoiding the glitz of Hollywood cinema and keeping to himself. While others acted out toughness in movies, Bronson lived it, carrying the quiet strength of a man who'd already faced life's harshest realities. In A Town Built on Illusion, Charles Bronson was the real thing, a symbol of unshakable grit during Hollywood's classic era, proving that true toughness doesn't need a spotlight. Sir Christopher Lee wasn't just a master of classic cinema's darkest roles, he was a real-life warrior whose story sounds stranger than fiction. Before becoming iconic in Hollywood movies like Dracula, The Lord of the Rings, and Star Wars, Lee served in elite British forces during World War II. From the SAS to hunting Nazi war criminals, his wartime exploits could fill a dozen films. Fluent in multiple languages and always surrounded by mystery, Lee embodied the kind of toughness vintage Hollywood could only dream of scripting. There are tales of secret missions, brushes with death, and even his connection to high-profile assassinations. While audiences admired his villains on screen, few knew he'd seen more danger in real life than any of his characters. In a world where cinema often blurred fantasy and reality, Christopher Lee stood apart. A towering figure who lived through history's darkest chapters and still became a legend of golden-era Hollywood. Long before James Doohan became a classic figure in Hollywood cinema as Scotty from Star Trek, he was a real-life war hero. While many actors in the golden era played soldiers in movies, Doohan survived the brutal reality of World War II. On D-Day, he stormed Juno Beach, took out enemy positions, and was shot 6 times by friendly fire, losing a finger in the process. But in true tough guy fashion, he walked back to camp, unaware of the bullets lodged in his leg. A silver cigarette case saved him from a fatal shot to the chest. When he later stepped into the world of vintage Hollywood, his war wounds were hidden beneath his iconic uniform. Doohan's legacy isn't just tied to classic film or sci-fi fame, it's built on courage that no script could replicate. In an era where cinema loved its heroes, James Doohan didn't need special effects. His toughest battles were fought long before the cameras rolled. When you think of Golden Era Hollywood, names like Kirk Douglas define the spirit of classic cinema, but his real-life toughness went far beyond the roles he played. Born into poverty and hardship, Douglas fought his way out of obscurity long before he became a legend on the silver screen. During World War II, he served in the U.S. Navy until a near-fatal injury ended his service. But resilience was in his blood. In Hollywood movies, he was the charismatic rebel, starring in iconic films like Spartacus and Paths of Glory. Off-screen, he was just as fearless, taking on the Hollywood blacklist by crediting banned writers, a bold move few dared to make during the vintage studio system. Douglas didn't just act tough. He lived it, surviving a helicopter crash and a debilitating stroke later in life, only to fight his way back. In a world where cinema celebrated larger-than-life heroes, Kirk Douglas embodied that spirit every day, proving that true grit wasn't just for the cameras, it was his way of life. Before he ever stepped onto a Hollywood set, Peter Julian Ortiz was already a legend in real life. While many dreamt of fame in classic cinema, Ortiz was earning medals on battlefields across the world. Fluent in 10 languages and a veteran of the French Foreign Legion by his early 20s, Ortiz wasn't your typical Golden Era actor. When war called, he didn't just act brave, he lived it, serving in both the U.S. Marines and the OSS, the precursor to the CIA. His daring missions behind enemy lines made him a decorated hero long before appearing in vintage war films as a technical advisor. Unlike many stars of classic Hollywood movies, Ortiz's tough guy persona wasn't crafted in a studio. It was forged through real danger. By the time he transitioned to film, he held 24 medals from 3 nations. In an era where cinema celebrated fictional heroes, Peter Julian Ortiz was the real deal, proving sometimes reality outshines even the boldest scripts. In the world of classic Hollywood, Sterling Hayden stood out, not just for his towering presence, but for his rebellious spirit. Dubbed the blonde Viking god of cinema, Hayden had the looks every studio wanted during the Golden Era, but he couldn't care less about fame. To him, acting in movies was just a way to fund his true passion, sailing the open seas. Yet behind his roles in vintage films like The Godfather and Dr. Strangelove was a man far tougher than any character he played. During World War II, Hayden ditched the spotlight to serve in the OSS, risking his life on covert missions behind enemy lines. He parachuted into war zones, smuggled supplies, and rescued stranded airmen, earning a Silver Star for his bravery. While other stars of Hollywood's golden age were making war films, Hayden was living the real thing. A true maverick of classic cinema, he despised the glitz but embodied the grit, proving that some legends weren't made in front of cameras but in the face of real danger. In an era where Hollywood movies were filled with tough guys, William Smith was the real deal. No acting required. Known across classic cinema for his brawny roles, Smith's toughness went far beyond the screen. During the golden era of film, he wasn't just starring in action-packed movies, he was living a life most scripts couldn't capture. A champion arm wrestler, decorated boxer, and record-breaking weightlifter, Smith's physical power was unmatched. But here's what set him apart in vintage Hollywood. He was as sharp as he was strong. Fluent in multiple languages and holding a master's degree, he even worked in military intelligence during the Korean War. His infamous fight scene with Clint Eastwood became a classic, but insiders knew that if it had been real, Smith would have easily won. While many actors of Hollywood's golden age played warriors, William Smith didn't have to pretend. He brought genuine grit to every role, proving that sometimes the toughest stars in cinema weren't crafted by studios. They were born for it. Before Bruce Lee or Jackie Chan, Sessue Hayakawa redefined masculinity in Hollywood's vintage cinema. A Japanese aristocrat trained in martial arts, Hayakawa turned personal tragedy into triumph when he became one of the first international stars of classic Hollywood movies. In an era filled with racism and rigid stereotypes, he shattered boundaries, becoming a romantic lead and a symbol of danger and allure on the silver screen. Off-camera, Hayakawa lived just as boldly, known for his fierce pride, physical prowess, and refusal to bow to Hollywood's prejudices. He often found himself in real-life confrontations where his samurai spirit came through. From silent films to Bridge on the River Kwai, his career spanned decades, proving that toughness wasn't just physical, it was about defying a system designed to keep him down. Hayakawa's legacy in Golden Era cinema is a forgotten chapter of resilience, showing that true strength in Hollywood wasn't always about fists, it was about fighting for respect. These weren't just stars of classic Hollywood cinema, they were real-life legends who proved toughness goes beyond the screen. Which story surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments. And if you love uncovering the untold tales of vintage Hollywood, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more secrets from the golden age of film.